Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kyra and today we're going to be ranking all 9 of my drugstore eyeshadow palettes. If you're new here, a very special welcome to you. I hope you will consider subscribing before you leave. If you like what you see today, it's free, it's easy, and it helps you find my videos Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday when I upload. And allegedly, if you ring that notification bell to all, YouTube will let you know when that happens. So we all seem to really like ranking things here on the YouTube, and I myself really like doing it. I like watching these types of videos, and I thought, let's start ranking some smaller groupings of eyeshadows. Now, drugstore is kind of relative, and I did include Pixi in this roundup simply because I can get Pixi at my Target, which is in fact my drugstore. So I included the Pixi palettes here, but the next ranking will be my affordable palettes. Of course, affordable being relative, but my non-high-end palettes that you can't buy at the drugstore. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So, starting out at number 9 is one palette that just actually kind of disappointed me. There's nothing at all wrong with the quality of the palette or the shade selection or anything like that in terms of just eyeshadow palettes in general. But this particular one, I guess I was just hoping it would be more special than it was based on the amount of hype that it's received here on YouTube. And that is the e.l.f. Bite-Size Eyeshadow Quad in the shade Cream and Sugar. This seems to be like everybody's favorite palette from these bite-size eyeshadow palettes, and for me it just wasn't. You have a real standard gold here and a real standard champagne. The champagne is really very beautiful and I do like it. I think the other thing that knocked this one down into last place is that for me, in my skin tone, this matte shade is my skin tone, and then this matte shade is very deep. I can mix them together to make another color that I could use as a transition or more of a mid-tone. However, I just found this particular brown, in terms of being able to blend it out and make it into something other than just pure depth on the eyes, it just didn't blend that well for me, and I generally don't have trouble blending eyeshadows. So for me, that's why this one came in at number 9. I'm not getting rid of it. I think it's a handy little quad to have. It has a really nice, easy to reach for champagne in there, but it did come in last place. Coming in at number 8, this is a hard one. I'm sorry, Hannah. I got this palette from my children like 2 Mother's Days ago, I believe it was. They picked it out themselves, and I do like the palette. It just so happens that it falls at number 8 because of the other palettes that are included in this roundup. And that is the Pixi by Petra Hello Beautiful English Rose palette. Like I said, it is pretty. It has some really nice textures in here, and then you do get these glowy highlighters slash blush shades here. Overall, I really like the Pixi shimmer formula. I find it to be really beautifully foiled and just nice to work with. I mean, if you see it there. And then, you know, like I said, we have the face shades in here. I think that one's the one that would work as a blush for me. The other two are more like highlights. But to be very honest, I do not reach for this palette a lot. I believe it was limited edition. I can't see, I don't know if I was able to link it in my inventory or not, but I will have everything that is available linked below in this ranking video. But it's a pretty palette. I do think that this little burgundy number right here is a little out of place in this palette, but overall it's really nice. I like the different textures. There's definitely more satin leaning as well as more metallic leaning, and then of course you have some mattes in there as well. But it's a pretty palette and I do love it, and I also especially love that my children picked this out for me, and you know, maybe she'll work her way up at some point. And BTW, I don't have my soft boxes on today. It's too hot for that. Too hot. I also want to point out at this point that I like all of these palettes. I wouldn't have them in my collection otherwise, and this actually was a lot harder of a ranking than I expected it to be. I think when I have a lesser number of products to rank, it makes it a lot harder, but I just wanted to mention that because I mean, even this one coming up at number 7, I absolutely adore, but alas, it has to go somewhere. And that is one of the e.l.f. 18 pan palettes. I love the formula of these palettes, very consistent with the bite-size eyeshadows, although these came first. This is the Earth and Ocean palette from e.l.f. and I love this. I remember being so excited to get this, so excited that my Target for once had a new release pretty early on in the release. So I snatched this up. I believe, I don't know if I did 4 or 7 looks, but I'll link that down below as well. Some of my favorite colors in here, I really love this shade Saltwater, Sun Yourself, and Sahara. And these are beautiful metallics. This Saltwater shade is a duochrome that's really, really pretty on the inner corner. I love the Sun Yourself shade. It's almost like a duochrome. It almost has like a little tint of a green something going on, but it too is really pretty on the inner corner as a lid shade. And then, you know, I think this green right here, Sahara, is very reflective of the quality of metallics that you could expect from these 18 pan palettes. I don't know why more people don't talk about these palettes. I think they're extremely good quality, especially for the price. They're not good for the price, they're good especially for the price. They're just good. I think that they stand up to a lot of my higher end palettes in my collection, and this is a really good one. Again, another one to rank so low in the ranking, but they all have to go somewhere, and today this is how I feel about this palette. It's the Retro Paradise palette from e.l.f. This, I think it's a limited edition. I would have to assume that it is, but it's one of their 18 pan palettes. I just finished a 4 looks 1 palette with this a couple of weeks ago, so I'll link that one down below for you as well. But you have several duochromes in here. You got Disco, Periso, and Saltwater are all duochromes. Look at that! So pretty. I had so much fun with this palette. I think my favorite look that I did was the one where I used the purpley blue duochrome called Disco. But they're all beautiful. I don't know how anyone could look at these and not see that they're every bit as good a quality as any other eyeshadow formula out there that's good. I just had a lot of fun playing with this one. I think the reason it fell in the ranking where it does is just because I haven't had it as long as some of these other palettes. And so I'm not quite as attached to it as I am to some of my other palettes as well. But I highly recommend this one. I think this is 100% summer in a palette. Coming in at number 5, I have used the absolute snot out of this thing. I won't be surprised when I hit pan on this pretty soon, and it's the e.l.f. Bite-Size Eyeshadow Quad in Rosewater. Specifically, this shade right here is the most beautiful pink. It's one of my favorites in my collection now. It's not really a duochrome, but it does have some kind of a special sheen to it. If you can see there, almost like a lighter, more silvery, maybe even leaning a touch of aqua with that really beautiful light pink base to it. And that's why I love this. But I also really love me a good Dusty Rose matte shade, which we have in here. You got your dark shade, which works beautifully for any kind of depth. And then this other metallic shade is a really pretty all over one shadow look. That's how I tend to use that one. If I want to wear the light shade, I tend to build up with the mattes and then go in with this beautiful light shimmer. However, the times that I've used this shade right here is been as a one shadow look, and it's so pretty, or even two. Sometimes I pop this on the very inner corner or innermost part of the lid, but it's a beautiful one shadow look. You just put it all over the lid and buff it out, and it almost looks like multiple shadows, and stunning. Well, the birds are very opinionated out there today. Coming in at number 4 is another e.l.f. bite-sized eyeshadow quad, and this one is in the shade Pumpkin Pie. You might notice that I have a huge dip in this shade right here. This is legitimately my favorite bronze eyeshadow in my collection. No word of a lie. It's thick, but it's not like, it has that tenacity. It's really packs a punch, but at the same time it's smooth. It blends like a dream. Another great shadow for a one shadow look, and that's how I've mostly used it. But I also really love the 2 matte options that they included in here. I actually see quite a few different looks in here with only 4 shadows. I haven't really played as much with these orange tones, though I definitely will get to that because I'm feeling more orange shadows lately, or coppery shadows, which is interesting. But this is a beautiful, beautiful quad. My daughter picked this one out for me, and I'm so glad that she did, because to be honest, it was not one of the quads that I was interested in, but once I had it in my hot little hands, I ain't letting her go. Top 3, baby. Coming in at number 3 is an OG classic in my collection, but it is also a repurchase. I originally gave this palette away to my stepmom because she was wanting to try playing with some makeup, and I thought this was a great palette for her to start off with. It gives options, but it's easy to use, nothing crazy in terms of color, and it is the new classics. Again, one of the 18 pan palettes from e.l.f. I've talked about this quite a bit on my channel, but in case you've missed it, the reason I love this so much is that there's a lot of different tones in this palette that are fun to play with, especially as a beginner. You've got some cool tones in here, you've got some warm tones with which to start off an eye look. You have a gradient from light to dark. I mean, they're not organized that way, but they are in here. You have some really fun lid shades that I think are absolutely stunning. And I do think if I was going to recommend any one palette to a beginner who was looking for a really good, solid drugstore palette, or any palette really, but specifically drugstore, I would recommend this one. I think it's very easy to use. You've got a couple of fun tones in here to play with, but you also have everything you need in order to create an eye look, whether it's warm toned, cool toned, or otherwise. Some of my favorite shades in this palette, I love this shade Cosmo, and I also love this dusty rose called Charmer, and then this fun green shade. The green one didn't come off very well on the swatch, but you get the idea. I think this is a great palette. I will say to be a little bit cautious when using fingers or a wet brush in this particular one. I didn't run into it with my other 2 e.l.f. 18 pan palettes, but this one, I don't know if you'll be able to see, like this has a little hard pan, this has a little hard pan, and it's honestly just probably my fault. Like, I either stuck wet fingers in there to swatch, or, you know, the oils from my fingers or whatever. But I do think that needs to be said, but it's still coming in at number 3 for me because I just think so highly of the formula, and especially this colorway. We are down to 2, and this was actually quite difficult. Coming in at number 2 is the Pixi by Petra Eye Reflection Shadow Palette in the colorway Natural Beauty. That was rough. I won this in a giveaway actually, and I'm super glad that I did, because upon first glance this looks pretty stinking boring. However, when you start investigating more closely and actually putting these on the eyes and things like that, these tones are actually quite different. You have some rosiness in there, you have more bronzy, there's even some like a green tone in here. It's really beautiful. Same fantastic formula as the Hello Beautiful English Rose palette that I got from my kiddos. This is so cool. I'm gonna swatch a couple for you. So here are a few of the shades swatched out here, and as you can see, they practically look like liquid metal, and that's how they look on the eyes. They're very shiny, but they don't emphasize texture like some of the more metallic or thicker, tenacious metallic formulas can on the eyes. And so I just really like this. This is a really lovely go-to neutral palette if you're just into neutrals and you're wanting something that's really easy to work with, but you could kind of change up your look with warmth and coolness by way of the lid shade. I definitely recommend this one. This is not only an underrated brand in my opinion, but also a highly underrated eyeshadow formula. I really don't hear people talking about Pixi eyeshadows, and I really don't know why, because I think they're quite good, and this one was really hard to decide between this particular palette and the palette that came in at #1, which we're gonna get into right now. Coming in at #1, this palette came in where it did, not only because it's really, really good, but also because it shocked me to the core. I, for a long time, had a hard time finding eyeshadow formulas from the drugstore that I really loved. e.l.f. has been really good, really consistent for the last couple of years with their eyeshadow formula. That's why I have the palettes that I do. Pixi, also good, but not quite drugstore pricing if you ask me. Though like I said, I put it in this ranking because I can buy it at Target. This palette, however, absolutely shocked me, and that is the Maybelline Nudes of New York. I don't know why I thought it was Nudes. This is so good. This is so good. I love the formula. It's consistent all the way through. The mattes are really soft and smooth and almost have a smoothing effect on the eyelids, as well as the shimmers in here are fantastic. I feel like these are a little bit similar to some of the e.l.f. eyeshadows. I love that you have a more pinky, dusty, rosy situation over here. You've got some really beautiful warm shades over here. But some of my favorite shades here, oh, it's so hard to choose. And this is such a good everyday palette as well. There's a lot of options, but it's very easy to use as well. These are not as good as swatches as I would like to give you. This one up here though, which is Dreamer. Oh, it's a hard thing for me not to use that shade every time I dip into this palette. It's a little bit similar to that shade in the Rosewater quad, except for this one's a little bit more of a warmer pink if you ask me. But they're beautiful, especially the mattes are what impressed me. I feel like it's a little bit easier to create a good shimmer formula than it is to create a good matte formula. And this matte formula is fantastic. So that's why it comes in at numero uno. And that, my friends, is the ranking of my drugstore eyeshadow palette. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, you could give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. Either really helps me out on the platform. It helps to get my videos suggested to other people so that we can all make new friends down in the comments. And as a reminder, the next ranking is going to be my affordable non-drugstore eyeshadow palettes. So things like ColourPop, Juvia's Place, Alter Ego, all those goodies are going to be in the next ranking. And with all of that said, I hope you are staying safe and well in our current circumstances, and I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days, and I will see you in my next video real soon.